Welcome to the Arnold Summit and Conference here in Columbus, Ohio at the Arnold Sports Festival. Our next presentation is brought to you by Cenegenics. I would especially like to thank Cenegenics New York. Dr. George Shapiro has been a practicing physician for 28 years with a focus on genomics of cardiovascular disease, regenerative medicine, and improving longevity. He completed his training at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons in 1994. He was a recipient of the 10th Annual Alan P. Mintz MD Award for Clinical Excellence in Age Management Medicine and was named the 2016 Top Doctor in New York City. He has become known nationwide as an expert in age management medicine and leads one of the most prominent age management practices in the country as president of Cenegenics New York City. Rudy Inaba is a fitness and sports nutrition consultant with more than 12 years' experience in clinical exercise physiology and lifestyle management. After pursuing his Master's of Science in Clinical Exercise Physiology at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Rudy joined Cenegenics as the Director of Nutrition and Exercise, where he leads 19 clinical locations nationwide in their advancements in kinesiology, nutritional biochemistry, and their analysis of industry, research, and market trending. I would like to welcome Dr. George Shapiro and Rudy Inaba.
All right, guys, thank you very much for attending. Again, my name is Rudy Inaba. This is Dr. George Shapiro. Dr. Shapiro is actually headquartered in New York, and I'm also in Las Vegas. We get to meet together a lot for these conferences and share our experiences in age management medicine as well as precision medicine. And that's what we're going to talk about today, really just the advancements and how you can actually customize your approach, expanding more than just the nutrition exercise as well as supplementation. There's a lot more we can do to advance ourselves through science. So a couple figures for everyone. There's 2.2 million people per year that have in-hospital adverse reactions to prescribed drugs. Additionally, there are 20 million people that are prescribed unnecessary antibiotics for viral infections. 7.5 million people are unnecessarily undergoing medical and surgical procedures, and also 8.9 million people are exposed to unnecessary hospitalization. So really the question is, and that's what we've kind of launched into Cenegenics, is conventional medicine working for us? How do we improve? How do we get better? How do we take those next steps into advancement? Another figure from 2014, national health expenditure reached $3 trillion as of 2014, and that continues to rise. So we are continuing to trend upwards. We see more prevalence of type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, early onset of death, cardiovascular disease. All these numbers continue to rise even with this kind of spending. So our goal is to shift the paradigm of medicine. And our goal really is one of our late founders, he's quoted saying, we want to shift the paradigm of medicine from a reactive model, which is what we currently have, to a proactive approach. And by doing that, extending longevity, improving our quality of life. So with Dr. Shapiro's experience on both sides, he's going to go over from the reactive side as well as the proactive side.
Okay, so thank you all for being here today. I know it's busy downstairs and it's hard to get away from all that craziness, but at least you can have some peace and quiet for a little bit of time. Traditional medicine is disease management medicine. My background was in cardiology and heart transplantation, and that's really working into the depths of disease. As medicine's transformed over the last couple of years, and mostly with new advances in technology, we kind of shifted our focus into preventative medicine and being proactive to prevent diabetes, heart attack, stroke, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease by doing some new therapies to actually look inside your genetics, look inside your what we call telomeres to get a good idea of what your biological age is, how old are your organs inside, how old is your brain, your bone, muscle, heart, lungs, and blood vessels. And we can actually predict going forward if you're going to have a stroke or a heart attack or cancer or Alzheimer's disease. So Cenegenics' focus is really looking at the inside of your body through new technology and finding out if you're going to have these diseases. And that's really what we call being reactive compared to proactive compared to what traditional medicine is. Now, I'm outside of medical school since 1988, 30 years. Unfortunately, doctors today are still looking at textbooks written 30 years ago. And they're still looking at old data, old lab reports. Everything has changed. So there's a whole new movement in medicine called age management medicine. Not anti-aging. You can't stop aging, you can manage it. So our focus is really to manage medicine and really get a good look at what you are inside. So if you look at some of the new technology, there's something called metabolomics. It's our metabolism. Notice how some people have a big belly. Some people are thin. Some people can eat a slice of pizza and gain no weight. Some people eat a slice of pizza and gain 5 pounds. And everyone's different. You can't treat everyone the same. So there's something called precision medicine. And that's actually where our focus is going, to really be precisely focused in on the individual. So we have specific blood tests that we can do to look at your metabolome. It's a new word. It's a new term. The next thing is something called the microbiome, your gut. We all know after we eat certain foods, we get bloated. We look 8 months pregnant sometimes. We have bacteria in our gut. The bacteria in the gut has genes. Turns out that we have 22 million genes in our body. With the bacteria's genes, now we have 220 million genes. There's certain foods that we can actually test to see if you're sensitive to it and avoid it. This way you won't get that bloat. Now, specifically for this competition, for bodybuilders and a lot of people who train, I take care of a lot of people in that industry. And a big problem is when they go on stage, they need to really look thin and sliced and ripped. And the problem is certain foods they eat don't do that. So we have a new test that we can look at your food sensitivities. Rudy is going to talk about some of that a little bit later. We also now know your genome. Dr. Craig Venter invented the human genome in the 1980s. It used to cost $100 million to do that test. Now with new technology, it's a lot less than that. By looking at your genome, I'm not talking about what you hear on TV with some of these new tests that are sold in Target or these other stores for $23 or $100. These are really your whole genome or whole exome sequence that tells us what protein is actually in your genome, and that can give us a good idea of prediction. Some of my patients recently did a test and they had a colon cancer gene. We did a colonoscopy, found out they had 3 polyps that were cancerous, got them taken out, and that prevented colon cancer in those patients. So it's all about prediction. And there's 2 types of patients out there. Patients who basically want to let nature take its course and get frail and get a walker and get hunched over, or patients who want to remain fit as they age, remain strong, not get frail. So one of the big things that we do at Cenegenics is slow down aging, keep you fit, and keep you from not getting frail, and basically reduce chronic disease, such as I mentioned before. So some of the new things that we have is something called telomeres. Telomeres are a measure of your, let me just see, I actually have a video on telomeres, but we're probably not going to have time to watch that, but telomeres at the ends of your DNA. So if we look at, here it is. So if we look at your DNA, the ends are your telomeres. And the thing about your telomeres, if you compare it to a shoelace, the plastic tip of your shoelace is called your telomere. As your shoes get older, what happens to that plastic tip? It basically frays. It breaks off, and your telomeres are shortened. Your DNA now is unprotected, so now you can get disease. So what we can actually do is we can lengthen these telomeres. And by lengthening your telomeres, you're prolonging life. You can actually increase lifespan by 25 years just by getting your telomeres longer. So there's certain things that shorten our telomeres. Alcohol, big time shortening of telomeres. Lack of exercise, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, stress. All these things go against us. So certain people have a high stress lifestyle and there's nothing they can do, and they want to shorten those telomeres. There's now new medicines out there today called Telomerase Activators that can actually make your telomeres longer, and by doing that, you're increasing longevity. So I'm going to have Rudy talk about micronutrient testing.
So as Dr. Shapiro was speaking about the genomic sequencing that we do as well as the telomerase testing, think of it as kind of like an iceberg. You know, typically most people are only focused on nutrition and exercise, and that's what they can see above water. When we look at the genomic testing and also the telomerase testing, we're starting with the strands of the DNA and then going to the chromosome and the tips of those chromosomes. And now we're actually looking at cellular health, and that's through micronutrient testing. So with micronutrient testing, we're actually looking at the responses from certain foods in the intracellular system and see what we're missing and what we maybe have too much of. A lot of times people take multivitamins to replace these. You know, typically micronutrients are from different foods. Different colored foods have different antioxidants, and a lot of various foods have various micronutrient profiles. So in a bodybuilding community, a lot of times people focus on certain foods on a relatively high amount. They're doing the same kinds of foods because it's just easier, it's to maintain, it's easy to pack meals, it's easy to meal prep. Unfortunately, when you do that, you're actually missing out on a lot of these micronutrients. For example, if you're missing out on too much zinc, zinc can actually, if you're depleted in zinc, you can actually shut down testosterone production. So you want to eat foods higher in zinc, and that's typically from shellfish and oysters, things along that line. A lot of people don't eat those in their regular diet. So you need to look for different vitamins and minerals from different fruits and vegetables to have this balance, and that's where multivitamins come in. So people take multis just because they don't, you don't really know. You're just kind of taking an estimated guess of what you need. When you do micronutrient testing, it's a blood test, and we look at the intracellular health, and we see specifically what you're missing. A lot of times when we look at tests now versus tests maybe from 20 years ago, you see really dramatic changes because there's changes in the soil, there's changes in production of our fruits and vegetables. We're trying to go for more growth of all these foods because it's a bigger return for the farmers. You get more money out of it. It's more profitable. But in turn, the food is actually less dense in these micronutrients, so we need to replace that with more of them. Buying organic is also helpful in certain cases. So things we find out from this: enzymatic function. We need our enzymes to help digest our food and also process things throughout our body. Hormone production, speaking on behalf of zinc and other nutrients. The metabolism of our glucose and fatty acids. If we are micronutrient deficient along a lot of these minerals, you're going to have a harder time metabolizing sugar, taking that glucose and shuttling into the muscle cell. A lot of times you're going to have that glucose floating around in the bloodstream, and over time that's going to make you more insulin insensitive, so it's going to drop your insulin sensitivity, and that's where type 2 diabetes can come from. So we want to make sure that our metabolism is firing on all cylinders for terms of glucose, for fatty acids, and also for our amino acids from protein. Immune function is another one. Everyone takes vitamin C in cold and flu season. That's the same kind of thing. It's micronutrient testing, looking at vitamins and minerals that you're depleted in, whether it be you're in the dark or it's cold, you're not getting outside, and also foods you may be missing out on to suppress immune function. And the other thing, the intracellular requirements are a big thing. There's a couple different ways to test micronutrients. You can actually just test from the serum, or you can get the results from the serum and get a response from the cell. So we actually look at what's missing in the cell, not just the serum. So we partner with a great company that works with our patients to provide this information. Again, taking it from one step to the next. In bodybuilding and fitness and figure, you're training and you're dieting from 12 weeks out to 2 weeks out. It's a constant progression to getting more intense and finding more information and tweaking things. The smallest tweak at 2 weeks out can make the biggest improvement when you step on stage. And that's what we do. Nutrition and exercise is number one. Obviously, that's going to be the tip. And as we work down, then we're looking at our cells and what we're missing out on. Then we're also going to look at our chromosome, the telomere tips, and then we're going to look at our DNA. So any fine-tuned thing, if we cut out maybe one certain type of food, whether it be a fruit or a vegetable or a type of protein, that can dramatically improve our inflammatory response over a long period of time, which can in turn reduce our disease risk as we age. So again, the clinical significance for micronutrient testing, just like anything else, we're able to treat disease before it progresses. We get a good picture of what's going on and what we need to have hormone function improve, enzymatic function improve, and just have the more metabolism improvements for our glucose and fatty acids. Food sensitivity is another new one that we started doing. We have two different types of food sensitivity testing. The newest one we're doing, it's actually looking at the inflammatory response from each individual food. So it's an analysis of diet-induced sensitivity pathways. So really we have I think on the next slide we have it. But what we're able to do, we take a blood test, and we're able to look at our responses. We're able to take our blood and compare it to a differential of 100,000 foods in a library and showing how we respond. When you eat a certain food, if you have an inflammatory response, do you have a histamine response? A lot of guys, if they eat wheat or gluten, maybe they have a runny nose for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. You're blowing your nose after you have a cheat meal because those are foods you might be sensitive to. We're looking to see what foods cause that response, and that white cell have a pro-inflammatory effect and a pro-pain. So if we have inflammation in our body, whether it be our joints or in our sinuses, and we're eating these certain foods, that can actually enhance our inflammatory response and have it be more pronounced, and that can overturn, for a long period of time, if you're eating these same foods, you're causing this inflammatory response, that can lead to disease. Chronic low inflammation is really one of the biggest things we see in a lot of our patients. By removing these foods and removing these stimulus, we actually see the improvements. So yeah, so 150 foods and food chemicals. We look at red dye. I think there's 5 different red dye options that we look at to look at our response. Overconsumption of certain things, again, wheat and gluten are pretty big. That's why a lot of teams, if you think about it, in the bodybuilding community, when you're pre-contest, you're shifting to more rices and kind of gluten-free options. In the off-season, you can do more oatmeals, things along those lines, even bread or brown rice. But as you get closer to contest, you start to do more drier carbs, kind of they're termed. And that's really the response. If you have an inflammatory response to some of these foods, you're going to be holding more water, and it's noticeable when you're a lean body weight. So that's just kind of the way that when you look at traditional bodybuilding and the kind of the efforts we put in that way and the kind of the references we use, medicine is now catching up and seeing what those specific changes are and how we can test them. And hormone optimization. So for anyone who's seen Cenegenics, this is probably what you think of us as. Actually, when you look at our Google AdWords, 8 out of 10 organic searches that led to Cenegenics.com were for either testosterone or growth hormone. The other two were fat loss and muscle growth. So hormone optimization is obviously a huge component of precision medicine and of age management medicine and living well. The testosterone industry, specifically on testosterone, it's predicted to be a $6.5 billion industry by 2020. We started in 1997. There was really no one like us. There's still no one like us doing the comprehensive side, but there's a lot of people doing testosterone. You can go to a testosterone clinic in Florida or Columbus, actually here there's a couple. We're really all over the place, and it's going to continue to grow. Number one being the rising awareness. More people are talking about testosterone. 20 years ago when we started, people weren't talking about low testosterone levels at the dinner table. And now it's common knowledge that as you age, you do see a drop in testosterone. And we're also seeing younger men having issues with low testosterone as well. And that could be induced by either abuse of certain compounds, but also just having excess body fat, eating poorly, all those things, having that low enzymatic function, the low micronutrient deficiencies, all those things can add up and reduce our testosterone production. In fact, 84% of men over 35 years old have researched about testosterone therapies. So when you look at them, it's not just a one-sided story, and Dr. Shapiro can obviously speak on this far more than I can, but with hormone optimization, you want to look at a compound of things. Total testosterone is what a lot of people look at. Now, total testosterone by Quest Diagnostics, which is a huge lab that work nationwide, their reference range for a normal testosterone level is between a 300 to an 1100. That's a normal range. So if you go to your primary care doctor who's not educated in hormone management and he sees a 400 or a 450, again, between 3 and 1100 and you're a 400, he's going to say you're normal. And that's like moving along a D-minus student. And that's not how you want to live for the last 25, 35, 40 years of your life if you have low levels. Now, when you do treat total testosterone, it doesn't stop there. You want to see where that's going, and we're going to go to a pathway slide next. But you look at the total testosterone conversion to free testosterone, which is your biologically available testosterone where you feel and into the muscle tissue. Look at DHT. DHT, having an increase in that is what's going to lead to maybe prostate hypertrophy or male pattern baldness. But with that, you still need DHT. You just want to manage how much you have. And estradiol, you can actually have aromatase function into taking total testosterone and shuttling it into our estrogen pathways. Estrogen is a good thing for men for bone health and overall well-being. However, too much of it is when you can see gynecomastia, and that's when you see guys, bodybuilders are really the most experienced with that. They see that the most because typically levels are too elevated. We also look at IGF-1. IGF-1 is a picture of our growth hormone production. Luteinizing hormone is actually responsible for testosterone production. So for a non-bodybuilder, non-athlete, drug-free user, our body has luteinizing hormone. And the luteinizing hormone signals to the testes to make testosterone. So if you have low luteinizing hormone, that signal is low, and that's why you have low testosterone. So if we look at your blood and we see low testosterone, we are not necessarily just going to treat it with a big shot of test. We're going to see, all right, where is this starting from? If we see that your luteinizing hormone is low and your body's not getting that signal, that's why HCG is used in a lot of these clinics, because HCG signals the body to make more luteinizing hormone, which is then going to make more testosterone. For younger guys, this is really great because typically they are a little bit healthier. They haven't been under so much physical stress through their sex organs for different lifestyle choices. So we can do a lot of younger guys with HCG. Older guys would typically, Dr. Shapiro again can speak on this more, be using testosterone.
I just wanted to go over one thing
Yeah.
about dosing. For a lot of my patients who take testosterone therapy, it's being supervised. We manage them by doing blood testing every 4 to 5 months. There's a lot of bodybuilders who I take care of who go to the gym, and they think that they need different amounts of testosterone. So they wind up taking 2,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. So we have receptors in our body. The prostate is filled with testosterone receptors. When we take 0.3 cc's of a 200 milligram sample, that's 60 milligrams of testosterone. So our prostate now is swollen and filled. If we do more than that, what's going to happen to that testosterone? It's going to start to go to bad areas. It's going to go to receptors like DHT. It's going to break down to DHT, dihydrotestosterone, to cause hair loss. So if you look at a lot of people who are in the gym, they're losing their hair. They're going to the bathroom every 5 minutes because their prostates are so huge. And what happens is they get gynecomastia. So there's a big problem today in the gyms with testosterone levels. They think they need such high levels of testosterone. And actually, you don't. It has a negative and reverse effect. So I wind up seeing a lot of patients 10 years after they did their whole bodybuilding training and workouts, when their whole body's shut down, because your brain shuts down when you take testosterone exogenously. And it stops releasing LH that Rudy was talking about, and the LH stimulates the testes to make testosterone. It also is involved with the ovaries as well in women. So, it's a big problem today with dosing, and that's why it's really good to get medically supervised. If for some reason in the gym they went to a doctor of bodybuilding school, and everybody is a doctor in the gyms, and they all try to manage their testosterone levels with really high doses, and we see problems. And sometimes you can't reverse it, but a lot of times you can. So there's a whole new field of medicine called post-anabolic hormone for doctors. Doctors are seeing patients after hormone therapy, after anabolic hormone therapy gets abused in them 10 years later to try to fix them, because they have erectile dysfunction, they have reversal of all the problems that they want to get, and it's a big problem today. So for those of you in the audience who are involved in any of this, who know people, it's really good to be supervised, the right dosing, and that's a significant problem that we're seeing today. You want to talk about pathways?
So again, this is just kind of highlighting the pathways, showing that testosterone is not just a one-piece image. It goes in a lot of different directions. Think of like a street forking in a few different directions. Now, obviously, when it's medically supervised, you can pick up on this. So there are things that can actually block or slow down the conversion of testosterone to DHT. There's ones that can actually block the conversion to estradiol. Things that are common, again, the bodybuilding community has known about these drugs and has utilized these, for a long time, but it's always based on a symptomatic response. With a program like ours, we are being proactive, again, with this. So we look at blood work, comprehensive blood work every 3 months to see how these pathways are changing. So in the event that someone is having an elevated level of DHT, we're going to stop them before we have issues with their prostate levels. We're going to stop them before their hair is falling out in the shower. We're going to notice all this stuff beforehand. So being proactive, whether it be taking care of your health for longevity, but also being proactive and looking at your blood, if people are utilizing these hormones, are going to be important for long-term health. Again, you could always wait till you see the symptoms, but doing that over a long period of time, you could then start to have cumulative effects that might not be going in the right direction. So personalized treatment for hormones are number one. Everyone's going to respond differently. Again, not everyone's going to convert so much testosterone to DHT. Not everyone's going to convert so much to estradiol. Everyone is different, so looking at your responses frequently via the blood are going to be important. A couple secondary responses we want to look at too that are kind of indirectly hormone related is your hemoglobin A1C. When people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, that's the value we're looking at. So a normal hemoglobin A1C by clinical standards is below a 6.5. For us, that's way too high. Typically for our patients, we want them to be below around a 5.3. By selecting the right kind of carbohydrates, timing them the right time during the day, and having the exercise high enough to match the carbohydrate intake is going to be number one. Now, the nice thing is hemoglobin A1C can actually change around every 90 days. Every 3 months, it's kind of like a summary picture of what's going on with our red blood cell. So if you start a new nutrition program and a new exercise program, your hemoglobin A1C is going to be significantly different after 12 weeks. So again, that's why frequent follow-up for your blood work is going to be important. Hemoglobin A1C is tied with insulin sensitivity. You want to be insulin sensitive. You want your pancreas to be very sensitive to the presence of insulin, of carbohydrate, excuse me. Whenever we eat carbohydrates, it gets broken down and metabolized into glucose, and then glucose goes into our bloodstream. And insulin's job is to take that glucose and take it out of the bloodstream. And it goes in either to the fat cell or the muscle cell. Now, for leaner individuals, for bodybuilders who typically are very insulin sensitive because they have so much muscle mass, that's going to be shuttled into muscle stores for glycogen. Now, you take that same diet and you take someone who's maybe 30%, 40% body fat, they're not as insulin sensitive. So what's going to happen, that glucose is going to be floating around the bloodstream a lot longer, which is going to increase the hemoglobin A1C, which is going to increase their risk for type 2 diabetes over time. And when it finally gets sucked out of the bloodstream, it's going to primarily go to the fat cell because they don't have as much muscle and also they're not insulin sensitive. So there's supplements that can help improve this, but really lifestyle is the biggest thing that we can do to improve insulin sensitivity. So for anyone who is trying to get started on a nutrition program and maybe they're type 2 diabetic or they're trending in that direction, you want to remove a high stimulus of carbohydrate from the diet for a period of time so that your pancreas can kind of reset. Think of it as a carbohydrate reset for your body so that you can improve insulin sensitivity, and then when you start to include them, you can be a little more conservative with it. Lipid metabolism is another one. We want to see how people are metabolizing fats. It's a separate pathway. However, a lot of people, maybe they can absorb fats pretty well and use it for their cellular health. I mean, fats are very important. One thing, when you look at bodybuilding from maybe mid-80s, mid-90s, fats get dropped significantly. And it makes sense when you're trying to change caloric consumption when you're going to pre-contest. However, for lifestyle and for longevity, our cellular membranes, the walls of our cells are lipids. So we need healthy fats for all types of production. So they should never be removed from the diet for a longer period of time. High sensitivity C-reactive protein, for short we call this CRP. We measure this in the blood, and this is a marker for chronic inflammation. Again, we say that low-grade inflammation is the biggest killer, because if we have low levels of inflammation for a long period of time in our body, those risks for heart disease, the risk for metabolic syndrome, all those are going to be heightened every single year because you have this inflammatory response going on all the time. Again, that's affected by smoking, inactivity, belly fat, and also from the micronutrient deficiencies, and also from any kind of food allergy we may be consuming. Foods that are making us inflamed, that's going to keep increasing your CRP. So we're able to look at this level as a summary picture for our patients, and then if someone does have a high level, even after they've taken out all these poor foods and we've changed all these stimulus, then we can do the allergy testing to see how they're responding to specific foods. Vitamin D3, it's probably one of the most underrated blood values we look at. People see vitamin D in the stores and it's cheap, it's maybe $5. You think it's really not a big deal. Whereas having suboptimal levels of vitamin D3 in your blood is actually linked to heart disease, to metabolic syndrome, to testosterone deficiency. It's probably one of the cheapest and easiest things you can do as far as supplementation goes. Vitamin D levels, you can reach toxic amounts. So typically if you exceed a level of around 100 value, it's potentially toxic. So we keep our patients around a 50 to 70 range, which is usually done by 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. Anything below 20 is considered deficient. So if you're in weather like this for a long period of time, if you are not getting out in the sun, if you're not eating foods that are high in vitamin D, then you're actually going to have that suppressed level. And again, over time, cumulative years, that's going to significantly increase your risk for early aging and early death. And hematocrit we obviously look at for the thickness and the thickness of the blood. When you're taking elevated levels of testosterone going unmanaged, your hematocrit levels can increase. And think of it as the viscosity of the blood. If you have thicker blood, it's harder to move, and that's going to increase your blood pressure. So if you see anything with steroid abuse and you see red faces and high blood pressure, typically the blood is so viscous moving through the vessels that you're going to increase your risk of heart disease and stroke. Obviously, we don't see that with our levels. A good, I guess a relative concept would be, an analogy, would be hormone levels for age management purposes are typically around 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight. So a 220-pound guy, we'd probably start off at around 100 milligrams of testosterone. Versus someone who's an amateur, non-competing bodybuilder in the gym who's maybe abusing certain things, 500 milligrams per week is kind of that's not really an unsettling number in that community. So really, that person with the 500 milligrams is actually 5 times higher than what your human body would actually produce. So again, doing age management purposes and having long-term health and having the benefits of testosterone, it's a different place in the spectrum of having elevated levels for performance enhancement. So again, testosterone therapy and precision medicine, it's personalized and not one size fits all. So the 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight is typically a stake in the ground, and looking how that responds for the free testosterone, the estradiol, and the DHT is where we start to get very specific in the changes we're going to make with dosing and additional drugs that may be used. So really the question is, how do you make the ultimate transformation? And a lot of people just see nutrition and exercise. And again, that's the biggest thing that everyone can change. Whether you get blood work done, or you work with a doctor on this or not, nutrition, exercise, and these lifestyle changes we can make are extremely significant, and that can make a world of difference. However, it is just the tip of the iceberg. The whole human body is more than just nutrition, exercise. You want to look at your genomes, you want to look at your chromosomes with your telomerase, you want to look at how you're responding to different foods, what kind of allergy production you have, and also any kind of micronutrient deficiency you have, so that you can really pinpoint those little pieces of the puzzle and adjust and adapt.
So to basically review what we spoke about today and what we do at Cenegenics is we'll do a comprehensive blood test, not a typical blood test you get in the typical doctor's office, a blood test that has what we call new biomarkers to actually see inflammation inside the blood vessel, new genetic markers to see if you have an increased risk for cancer, heart attack, and stroke. In addition to blood testing, you'll come in and spend the day with us. It's about 6 to 7 hours, and we'll look at different body systems. We do tests on your brain to see if you're concentrating, focused, motivated, are you forgetting things, how's your verbal memory, visual memory, composite memory. A lot of different things normally we don't think about, the involuntary, but one of the things we do is really get a good sense of your brain age. Then we look at your bones. Are your bones soft? Are they thin? Are they starting to break? Or are they at risk for breaking? We look at your muscle mass. Where's your muscle? Is it in your gut? Is it in your glutes? What's the difference between your fat and muscle combinations? We look at your total body fat. We look at your belly fat. Belly fat is the toxic, dangerous fat that releases these mediators called adipokines that travel to cause inflammation. And then we look at your heart and lung function. We do a test called the VO2 metabolic stress test. For those of you who don't know what that is, you're on a bike, you're pedaling really fast, it gets higher and higher, you're wearing a mask, and it blows out oxygen and carbon dioxide, and you see your anaerobic threshold. When we get your anaerobic threshold, we look at your heart rate, and that is where we want you to start exercising. Because if you exercise at your anaerobic threshold, you can exercise for 23 minutes, burn fat 10 times faster, gain muscle 10 times quicker. So it's not about being on the treadmill for 45 minutes. So we can actually precisely, and that's what Rudy was talking about, precision medicine, we can find out exactly what heart rate you're burning fat and gaining muscle 10 times faster. It also gives us something called your functional cardiac output. Your heart is a pump, and what happens at rest, your heart's pumping. What happens when your heart is at exercise? That's called functional cardiac output. It's the most important test right now in medicine that we can get to tell us if you have a heart problem or not. You don't want to exercise if you have a 90% blockage in your heart and you can have a heart attack on the treadmill. So this test is a great way to look at your functional cardiac output, anaerobic threshold, and what we call your oxygenation of your lung tissue. We then could look inside your blood vessel without looking inside. It's a non-invasive test. We put a cuff on your bicep. We squeeze it till no blood flow hits your fingertips, let it go, and we find out how quickly your vessel responds and dilates. If it dilates, it's normal. You're producing something called nitric oxide, which is a very powerful vasodilator that opens up your blood vessels. A lot of people have dysfunction of brain, heart, erectile dysfunction as well because they're not getting blood flow to those areas. So if you don't have nitric oxide production, it means you have what's called atherosclerosis of your arteries. So we look at that. And then you see the doctor for about 2 hours. And today, in normal physicians' offices, you see a doctor for 5 minutes. Here you're seeing a doctor face-to-face, 2 hours. And then after we finish that evaluation, you'll see one of Rudy's team members who will spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours going over a whole diet, a low-glycemic diet. And then you'll see an exercise program. And then what we do is we figure out what hormones you're going to require. Most people above 40 need thyroid hormone replacement, adrenal hormone replacement, testosterone hormone replacement. Men need estrogen just as much as women. A big problem with bodybuilders is they block estrogen to less than 5. Estrogen we need for bones, we need for libido, and we need it for heart function. So because it vasodilates. So the worst thing to do is take a daily estrogen blocker. It's very important. We like to keep our levels around 25 for men, obviously 150, a lot higher for women. So in addition to those hormones, there's other hormones and supplements that we recommend. And then in 6 weeks, we'll send someone to your location to do a blood test. We discuss results over the phone. So my practice has patients from all over the world. They fly in for the day, all over the U.S. I'm based in New York City. And they come in, they spend the day with us, and we basically optimize their health. So as this program is going on, we're finding out that all of them who started with a belly have no more belly, no more cholesterol, very little sugar, lower blood pressure. They have more energy, better muscle tone, less body fat, more fit, drive, motivated, and they're running circles around everybody. And I tell you, it's a great program. It's expensive. So what we're trying to do with this conference is how do we transform the masses, not just our high-end patients. So there's a company called Fruit Street that I partnered up with that has something new. Fruit Street is from Harvard Medical School, and what they developed is a program that you're able to see patients virtually. It's called telemedicine. So now, for the people who are interested in bodybuilding, and foods is a big thing, and I know a lot of people here, they take pictures of their foods, send it to the nutritionist, they take pictures of their body, send it to the nutritionist. So this is a way that's what we call HIPAA compliant. There's a new federal law out there. We can't send medical information over the telephone. We can't send it over iPhones, but we still do, and we answer text messages over iPhones. It's illegal. So the new law is called HIPAA. It's a federal law, and what we can do now is by looking at this new telemedicine program, it's an app, and we can actually have a special blood pressure cuff that goes on your hand. It goes right to this app, goes right to the doctor's chart, and the doctor can review it on a daily basis. He can look at your sugar to see if your hemoglobin A1C or glucose is good. He can look at your heart rate. You can see how much you're exercising. You can take pictures of your foods. They get immediately right up there. So it's a way that we can actually talk to the patient and communicate with the patient more frequently. One of the problems that we have in our practices is a big attrition rate. Once people get on here, they're feeling good, they don't think they need us anymore because we're not really contacting them much. Here now, we can contact them on a daily basis through video conferencing, through iPhone apps, and this is actually changing the way it is. So it's a HIPAA-compliant video conferencing with text messaging. You have FDA-approved devices, medical devices, and one of the things that they use in NASA is the astronauts use this new video conferencing technology called VC, and this is part of it. So it's really the future of being able to connect with a large group of people, and now you're talking about 200,000, I think, people at this conference. A lot of them are interested in foods and eating. So this kind of technology is available now so people can talk to their trainers, talk to their nutritionists in a way that's legal and not and compliant, as well as they can talk to doctors, and doctors can make recommendations. So I think that's about it. Did you want to talk about anything else? So, to sum it up, what we're doing is advanced testing, telomere testing, genomic testing, metabolome testing, micronutrient testing to get a good idea of what your biological age is. How old are you inside compared to your chronological age? Just to give you an idea, I'm 56. I started Cenegenics when I was 45. My biological age, measured by my telomeres, was 75. That's because at that age, you belong to you just don't do the right things. You have too much alcohol, too much meat, you're not exercising, and now, 10 years later, being on the Cenegenics program, my body fat went from 40% down to 14%, and my telomere age went from 75 down to 35 at the age of 56. So you can actually lower your age inside your body and live longer. And Time magazine published a paper about 2 years ago about a baby face, and it says, can you imagine this baby living to 150 years of age? And it's possible. We're not dying at 60 anymore because we're taking care of ourselves. But if we do it the right way, the supervised way, I think that's the way to do it. I think the way that a lot of people in their training gyms are doing it, they're just not doing it scientifically. They're just taking what they want to take, taking 10 times normal doses, adding steroids to it. Steroids eat your bones, eat your kidneys, eat your liver. Worst thing to do. The best thing to do is eat right, exercise right, and take your hormones that you're losing and optimize them. So what Rudy was talking about, most people are at the low end. We make them at the high end. A typical bodybuilder keeps it at 10 times the high end. Dangerous. So you really need to be supervised. We'll be happy to answer any questions outside after this talk, but thank you very much.